And it's, when I say the words of what happened, it sounds almost silly to me. Like, how could that have affected you so deeply? Which is why people struggle with validating their trauma. It doesn't sound like a big enough deal. That what I went through wasn't a big enough deal. It shouldn't have done that to me. Well, should or shouldn't have, it did.
Right, right.
I like to illustrate that with, you have two little girls skipping down the street and they both fall down. One of them skins their knee pretty badly and it's bleeding and she's hurt and she's on the ground. The other one just gets up, she's fine. She says, "What's wrong with you?" "Well, I didn't skin my knee." Well, she did. You can't tell her it's not skinned. But that's what people tend to do with emotional trauma. That's what we tend to do to ourselves. I should be stronger. That should not have happened to me. I shouldn't have thought of it that way. Stop shoulding yourself. I had to learn how to stop shoulding myself.
The abuse of prescription drugs by young people is on the rise, and the CSRA is not immune to this very real issue.
A lot of young people think prescription drugs are less risky because they're prescribed by a doctor. Preventing domestic violence, it is the goal of a panel comprised of some heavy hitters, the state's attorney general, law enforcement agencies, and advocacy groups.
Hey everyone, 4 years after the invasion of Iraq, it's a good time to take stock. Since the war began, 3,192 U.S. troops have been killed, more than 24,000 wounded, at least 50,000 Iraqi civilians have died.
It's war.
Welcome home. Welcome back to another exciting episode of War. We're all recovering. This is the place where we talk about the battles people don't post, the pain people hide, and the healing most people never get to. Today's conversation, this one is going to hit different, because we're not just talking about trauma. We're talking about the kind that doesn't leave bruises, the kind that rewires you, who believe in who you are. Today, I'm sitting down with Danielle Bernock. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Okay, excellent. She's an international award-winning author, a trauma-informed faith-based self-love coach. Wow, that's great. And someone who doesn't just teach healing, she lived it. This is about childhood trauma. This is about identity. This is about learning how to love yourself when life taught you not to. Let's get into it. Danielle, welcome to War. It's an honor to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I really love the name of your podcast, War, because we are fighting a battle people can't see, and we're all recovering. I love it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Danielle, I want to start here. A lot of people hear the word trauma, and they immediately think of extreme situations. But what most people don't understand is trauma doesn't always come from what happened. It comes from what stayed. So can you explain trauma to us? Just break it down for us.
Well, I would love to, because the misunderstanding of trauma is hurting a lot of people. You dismiss it because you look at trauma as if it's an incident that occurred. But an incident that occurred is not trauma. It's a trauma exposure is one way they label that. It's an opportunity for you to become traumatized. Two people can go through the exact same thing and come through vastly different. So that's the incident. So it's not what happened to you, even though asking that instead of what's wrong with you, like we learned from Oprah, is a better question. Still, it's what did it leave behind? Because trauma is the wound on the inside of you.
Yes.
In your brain, in your body, in your emotions, in your spirit, in your relationships. It leaves a mark. Just like when you fall on the concrete, if you skin your knee, then you have a mark on your knee. Well, trauma leaves a mark on the inside where your eyes can't see. They can do brain scans and see if we don't go around scanning each other's brains.
Right. Only if we could, right? That'd be awesome.
I don't know. I wouldn't want people seeing inside there.
Right. There'll come a time when, probably not in our lifetime, but it'll happen eventually. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I don't know. We've come a long way.
Right.
And
so
fast.
then, so when someone grows up in an environment where they, weren't seen, weren't heard, or were constantly hurt in ways people dismiss, how does that shape the identity they carry into adulthood?
It dismisses your value. You see yourself as invisible, unworthy of love, and questioning your right to exist, depending on how pervasive, how vast, how deep the emotional neglect went. I always bring up Dr. Janice Webb, who wrote a book called Running on Empty. That's how I learned the term childhood emotional neglect. It's how I learned most about it and how it unveils itself in our lives, how it happens and what it looks like. She does a story of a fictitious kid and then rolls it out with 12 different parenting styles to illustrate what emotional neglect looks like and how it happens beside a healthy, the way it should have been. Or supposed to be, I should say, not should. I'm not going to should that. It's design. Our world does not operate by design. The design is broken. God made the world by design, and the design is broken, and we're living in that. But we can do things better. We can adopt better ways if we will be aware of the truth and choose the ways that are better. But a lot of times, a child would be emotionally neglected by parents who are doing their best, but they were emotionally neglected themselves. So they don't have to give you what you need because they never received it. That's the one category Dr. Janice Webb calls well-meaning parents who were emotionally neglected themselves. But she has 12 different categories, and I fell into 3 of those. I was one of the well-meaning parents who were emotionally neglected. Both of my parents were childhood trauma survivors that didn't even know they were childhood trauma survivors.
Right,
I've looked
right.
at that since I've learned trauma. I look back and go, wow, yeah, they had a pile of trauma. My mother lost her dad when she was 7 years old and was raised mostly by her grandmother, who was born in the 1800s. So, I mean, if that tells you anything about how far back her upbringing and German background, very staunch, very stoic, shut up and do what you're told kind of thing. It's like there was no room for emotion there. And I'm a highly sensitive person, and I needed more than a child who would be normally a little bit stoic in their personality. Didn't get what I needed enough. That's the word that Dr. Janice Webb uses, because there's no perfect parent. You can't parent your kids perfectly. You're going to fall down because the design is broken.
Right, right.
You can do your best, and can you do enough for that child? Because every person's different. They have a different threshold of how much love and nurture and how much they need to be seen, how much alone time they need. Every person's different. And so Dr. Janice Webb uses the term enough. Did that child's emotional needs get met enough?
Yes.
A parent will fail their child. It's inevitable.
Yes.
But did they get it enough? And due to the childhood emotional neglect at home, plus I had multiple deaths that took place, multiple bullyings and public shamings and humiliations. It was a whole big pile. They all wove together like a horrible spider web. And so it wasn't just my parents, but that was part of the story.
Wow. And what you was describing earlier, how we, it should be that a perfect world, only if we could get there. And, because what I've seen is, and what I've lived is that people don't walk around saying, I'm traumatized, We walk around saying, I'm not enough, and I don't trust people. I sabotage everything good in my life, So help me connect that. How does trauma become identity?
We identify with the symptoms rather than the cause. So you said, I sabotage everything I do. That's a symptom. That's a side effect of trauma. It's like if you have a broken arm and you focus on the pain rather than setting the bone and putting a cast on. It's focusing on the pain instead of focusing on the brokenness and the cause. A process I use with my clients is called SELF, S-E-L-F. I have it IP protected, and it stands for C, which is about awareness, because if you don't see something, you can't do anything about it. And then E is about exposing what's underneath it, what caused that, what's behind that thing that you see. And then L is love, because you need to lavish love on yourself to give yourself the courage to do something about what you just saw and exposed. Otherwise, I'm jumping into bed, pull the covers over my head, good night. But we need that love, that courage to take the action to move into F, which is free, to get free of those side effects by dealing with the cause of them. You're probably familiar with dandelions. If you have a dandelion out in your lawn and you just pull the top off, you didn't do anything to get rid of that dandelion. You just can't see it anymore. And that's what people do with trauma. They'll like rip the top off. I'm good, I'm fine. I'm good, I'm fine. They might, pull it and they get half of the root. Well, I went to counseling for, a couple times, but they won't get to the bottom of the root and get the whole tap root out. You have to get the whole tap root out to get the healing and the wholeness that we were born to live. We were made to live loved, and that's something we have to fight for.
So Danielle, with that said, let's get to the bottom, the root. I want to make this real for a second. For me, this isn't theory. I've dealt with PTSD, still dealing with PTSD from military service. And then everything changed again after I had a motorcycle accident in 2022. Near-death experience. It was just crazy. Traumatic brain injury. And what hit me wasn't just the physical recovery, right?
Yeah.
It was what happened in my mind after. I was paranoid, the fear. I had, the identity shift, the question of who am I now? Like that constantly replayed in my mind. So what I want to ask you is, when someone goes through something that shakes them to their core like I did, how do they rebuild identity without carrying the trauma into everything they become?
Well, everybody's different, and a traumatic brain injury is different than emotional trauma because something physical is also going on chemically in that. So that's a variation on a theme, and I am not educated in traumatic brain injury. I am familiar with it, but
Right.
it's not something I have expertise in the area of. Mine's more in the area of emotional trauma. And it's to get to where is that trigger taking you is one of the things that I have learned to do. If you get triggered by something, that trigger drops you off somewhere. Something happens and you find yourself in a place you didn't mean to go. So when you got there, to slow down what happened between the trigger and where I arrived. And with one of mine, I went through this with myself. God showed me how to do this because I got so upset the last time I was triggered like that. I sat in a chair and I said, God, I'm not getting out of this chair until you fix this.
Right,
Because
right.
it happens over and over again. It's exhausting.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's frustrating. And it was a trauma that happened when I was 6 years old. And when I say the words of what happened, it sounds almost silly to me. Like, how could that have affected you so deeply? Which is why people struggle with validating their trauma. It doesn't sound like a big enough deal. That what I went through wasn't a big enough deal. It shouldn't have done that to me. Well, should or shouldn't have, it did.
Right, right.
I like to illustrate that with you have two little girls skipping down the street and they both fall down. One of them skins their knee pretty badly and it's bleeding and she's hurt and she's on the ground. The other one just gets up, she's fine. She says, what's wrong with you? Well, I didn't skin my knee. Well, she did. You can't tell her it's not skinned. But that's
Right.
what people tend to do with emotional trauma. That's what we tend to do to ourselves. I should be stronger. That should not have happened to me. I shouldn't have thought of it that way. Stop shooting yourself. I had to learn how to stop shooting myself. When I was 6 years old, in first grade, I had a teacher who was probably hormonal because she was pregnant. So I bring that up because now, looking back, I can understand things a 6-year-old could not understand.
Right, right.
So I'm 6 years old. I guess the class had been unruly. So the teacher told everyone no one can talk. Sounds completely like a normal thing to do. But I dropped my pencil, and my pencil rolled underneath one of my classmates' chairs. So I asked them to get my pencil. Oh, I spoke. I wasn't supposed to speak. She told us all to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in trouble. I got put out in the hallway, which was terrifying enough for a 6-year-old when everything's ginormous and you're this little thing. But then she brought me in for reading group, put tape over my mouth, and forced me to read with tape over my mouth in front of my reading group.
What?
Yes. And I never told a soul till I was grown up. And that's one of the multitude of traumas, and actually one of the smaller ones. And I was 50. I was in my 50s when it was still triggering me. And it happened the last time I was on a worship team at church. And I don't stand still when I worship. I don't like to sit still too long watching television. I don't sit still a lot.
Right, right.
I'm a mover, I'm active. And he was videotaping and I kept getting out of the screen. And so to teasingly play and to help me do what I needed to do, he came up and he taped my feet to the stage. Everyone else is cracking up. It triggered me.
Yeah.
First grade. I was gone and they're looking at me, seeing it was visible. The trigger was visible to them. I mean, they're watching me going, what the heck just happened to you?
Right,
kind
right,
of
right,
thing.
right. Yeah.
Thankfully, I reacted differently that time than I had before because I'd been working on healing my trauma before that, not even knowing the half of what I was dealing with. But I reacted to it differently. The worship leader was so kind. You don't have to be up here. You can sit out if you want. But I wanted to anyways. But I went home and sat in a chair and said, I don't want this to ever happen again. And what God showed me was there was a space between that trigger and where I went when the trigger happened, where there was a whole thought progression in the subconscious mind, a whole thought progression that I went through like instantaneously because it's in the fast track of the brain, the unconscious part. And that's what sent me there. So I'm like, well, what's happening there? So he slowed it down, and I learned I wrote it down. I was writing down notes of this thought, then this thought, then this thought, then this thought, then this thought led to that one. And it dumped me on I was worthless.
So, Danielle, how did you react during that time, the second time when he taped your feet together or in place?
I don't completely remember because I think part of me left.
Right.
And I think I started crying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember. It arrested me. It kind of arrested me so that I wasn't functioning.
Were you able to continue on, or did you have to leave and reset?
I did go into the bathroom and had a good cry.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of going home like I would have done many times before, I went back up there. He said I didn't have to continue. I chose to continue because I wanted to get through.
Right.
I wanted to get through. So I was grabbing a hold of courage to go through. But I did have that time in the bathroom to reset, collect myself to some extent. A friend came in there and prayed for me, but she clearly didn't really understand what was going on. But that was okay. Someone cared about me, and her caring about me is what gave me, that's the element of love. She gave me the love to give me the courage to take a step toward that freedom to keep going instead of running home and crawling into bed, which is what the emotions wanted me to do because it deemed me worthless and I needed to just stop existing. So I created a thing called a silver bullet, which is a short sentence or phrase that you rehearse and practice when you're not in the trigger, when you're in your conscious mind that is contrary to where that trigger wants to send you. It sent me to worthlessness, so my silver bullet became I matter. And I started saying that all the time. I matter, I matter. I put it up around my house. I matter, I matter. So the next time that trigger would come up, because I had planted that in there, that would come up and it would interrupt that thought process and stop the waterfall of thought progression. It still happened, but eventually it does not affect me at all anymore.
What about him, this guy? Did he ever ask you what happened, or did you explain?
He apologized profusely, and I apologized to him because I knew he was just playing. He had no malicious intent. I'm like, no, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. Yeah, he felt terrible.
Right. I'm just thinking, rebuilding physically is one thing, but rebuilding eternally, emotionally, that's where, people get stuck. That's why I got stuck. And
our brains are really complex, and they've learned about neuroplasticity that we can heal our brains by doing that, but it's work. We have to program them. They're like a computer. It's like our brain is a supercomputer. If we want to get rid of a laptop or a computer, you can erase it, but if you really want to get rid of what's on there, you have to rewrite over it so that what was on it is no longer able to be retrieved.
And what does that process look like?
What does that process look like with people?
Yeah,
or
like reprogramming your brain and
by your thought processes and how are you thinking, and to notice, to see, to recognize negative thinking patterns, and you can learn how you're thinking by listening to how you talk. You start paying attention. Well, what am I saying? Do you always say I'm stupid? Well, that's being unkind to you. That's not productive. That's not healthy. That's not self-love. So listening, and you just start, because you're not going to do it in a day. It's going to be a process. So you need to employ patience with yourself too, which can be really difficult. But that's why having a coach, someone who will hold you accountable, that you can contact to walk alongside you with it. And you do it layer by layer by layer, one thing at a time, just one thing at a time. Because we can't do 27 things at a time, but we can do one thing.
Right. I asked you that because, what does that process look like? Because I went through a 6-month intense PTSD program, and they talked about reprogramming your brain, and some of the things they did, the methods that we did, it wasn't forced on you or anything, but they recommended it, and I chose to do written exposure therapy. It's go through, write down traumatic events that happened to you and, just write it down, and it makes sense to you when you write it down for some reason. And then we went through prolonged exposure therapy, which was more intense, where you talk about it and you record, the therapist records, and part of your homework is you go back to your room or whatever and you listen to it for a while. Over time, they call it SUDS levels. It's supposed to, go from high to low. It's supposed to decrease. And then you went to moral injury, where you talked about the most, because people had different traumatic events, but you talk about the most and you share it. You talk about the hardest one and you share it with the whole group of people, and which was terrifying for me. But these are some of the methods they talked about that we did that they said would reprogram your memory. So that's why I would,
Did it
or
work for you?
reprogram your mind. During that time, my SUDS levels went down, but after the program, they started going back up. I think you probably have to do these certain things continuously. Part of it was in vivos. That's where you go out. Part of my in vivos was going out in traffic, because in Iraq, we were scared. I'm still terrified to be in traffic, because in Iraq, that's where things go boom. That's where, fuel trucks blow up, and that's where they target you at, is when you're sitting in traffic. So in traffic, I'm always looking for fuel trucks. So they will want you to go put yourself in these situations, during in vivos, and sit there in traffic purposely for 30 minutes or whatever, and do that repeatedly over time. And it's supposed to decrease your SUDS levels. You're supposed to be able to deal with it now. It worked while I was in the program, but after I got out of the program, I'm not going to sit in traffic on purpose. I'm trying to avoid traffic, So it started coming back. So I think this is stuff that you have to do repeatedly,
I don't think one modality or process works for everyone. Just
Right.
like trauma is personal, healing is personal. I mean, you're telling me about these things they put you through, and I'm going, that sounds awful.
Right.
Absolutely awful.
Right.
What my counselor did when I was in counseling, writing my first book about my story, she would ask me questions of why.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And those were the E in self. Why? Like I told her, she'd asked me a question. I don't remember the question now because it got interrupted. She asked me a question, and on the way to answer that, I was saying, well, I felt like I didn't belong in my family. I didn't feel like I was loved. And I was going on. She went, wait a minute, stop. I'm like, what? She goes, why did you feel that way? I'm like, I have no idea. And that was where the answer was. I needed to know why I felt like that. And it was emotional neglect. We unpacked it then, but I didn't know the term back then. Which I love to tell people, you don't need to know the fancy lingo to heal.
Right.
You just need to go toward healing, move toward healing. And I've heard of, going and sitting in a place, and if you associate your certain trauma with a certain place, that can be helpful, but it can also not be helpful. And it's important for a person to do what works for them. I'm a coach, not a counselor, but I've heard great things about EMDR, which is a different approach to rewire your brain on the inside of those memories instead of the deep exposure. Instead, you, I think, talk about it while that's happening, and they change your brain.
And what is EMDR exactly?
What?
EMDR. What does EMDR stand for?
Electromagnetic. I don't remember what the R stands for, but they put electricity in your brain while you're talking. Counselors are licensed to do that.
They put like wires, actual wires.
I've never had it done, but I believe they put the like nodes on your head. They don't. They don't enter your head.
Right.
But it's through talking about it, and then they change how you think about that. It's like it reprograms your brain with how that your brain processes that story.
Okay. I got to look into it. Not that I'm going to do it. I don't want nothing on my brain. Or
look into it and find out, because I don't do it, so I don't know enough about it to really explain it well. I just know that for some people it works really well.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out.
Your trauma is linked to war, and that's a whole different kind of thing. I mean, that's not the same as what I went through. Childhood trauma is not the same as war trauma. They're just
Right.
different.
Right. The war trauma, and then coupled with the motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
No wonder
Oh,
you have
once,
a problem with traffic.
and actually, that's why I wear my shades. People like, why don't you show your eyes? You know, I show my eyes, but let me show you my eyes right now. You see this puffiness? Okay, that's from the motorcycle accident. That's from facial and orbital fractures that healed in place. And now my eyesight is terrible, like with the lights and everything. And I have this light in the studio. So that's why I wear shades, because it'll give me headaches and all kind of craziness. Not then I feel nauseous. It's just a long,
Yeah.
yeah.
The body
So,
keeps a score. The eyes are connected to the things. I'm
right.
recovering from a hand fracture, and I had the daily reminder of how everything's connected. They're doing something to my hand, and it's making my stomach queasy, you know?
Right. Exactly. It's terrible. So when someone, is at rock bottom mentally, right? What's the first thing they need to understand about themselves?
They matter. They have value, and they have a right, and they are worthy of getting healed. That it matters for them to heal, that they matter. And people
Yes,
need to
ma'am.
know their value. They won't do anything about getting healed because they feel it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no hope. They're hopeless. They need hope. They need hope, and they need encouragement that things can be different.
So is that where most people go wrong when they're trying to heal, is when they think like that they don't matter? Where most people go wrong when they try to heal?
I don't know that there is a most people go wrong. Everyone's different.
Right.
And the trauma always affects a person's sense of value. That's why I'm a self-love coach. It always affects your sense of value, your sense of identity, which affects all your relationships. Why I call myself a relationship repair specialist. I help people repair the relationship not just with themselves, but it starts there, but the relationship with other people, because that's affected as well, because it flows out of who you are, what comes out of your heart. You need to know that you're loved. Knowing you're loved changes everything. Not knowing as in I understand English and I've heard it, but knowing, believing, I have value and I am worthy of love.
And I want you to be clear on something, for the audience. What's the difference between coping and actually healing?
Coping is like limping down the road. Healing is like going to the doctor for the limp.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so just limping down the road, just and
Doing
accepting
whatever
that.
just to keep moving forward. Just I'm
Right.
one foot in front of the other, whereas healing is you're addressing it.
Right.
You're
Love
not
it.
hiding it, you're not denying it, you're not shoving it down, you're not blaming it on someone else, you're not pretending it's not there. You're dealing with it one little part at a time.
I like that. And I want to go here because it's a little uncomfortable. And I read something, you said something powerful, that trauma doesn't disappear if it's ignored.
Right.
It stays, it gets louder internally.
Right.
So why do people avoid facing their trauma even when it's clearly affecting them?
Because they dismiss it, they think they're weak, they measure it by something else. So it's not a big enough deal. Like I mentioned, my 6-year-old trauma, tape over your mouth reading in a reading group. How do you compare that with, the Holocaust? You can't. But that's what we do. That's what I did. I compared things to the Holocaust, plane crashes, tsunamis, war, to the Sandy Hook murders. I mean, I looked at all these big, huge things, and, what you've been through is nothing.
Right. I can see that.
And when we say what we've been through is nothing, then we do nothing about it.
Okay.
But still, I have a quote that's gone viral, and in that quote it says, "Silent screams continue, only heard by the one held captive."
The silent screams continue, only held by the one most captive.
Heard by the one held captive.
Okay.
It's a quote that starts with, "Trauma is personal. It does not disappear if it is not validated. When it is ignored or invalidated, the silent screams continue, internally heard only by the one held captive. When someone enters the pain and hears the screams, healing can begin."
I like that. That's deep.
That was my epiphany when I was writing that book, and was the beginning of me being able to really truly validate all the trauma in my life. And that quote has gone viral. That
I could
propelled me
see.
to what I do now because it resonated with other people. I'm like, well, maybe I tripped on something here.
Yeah, that's deep. That's really deep. You know, I could see people why that would hit a lot of people. It hit me just now. Yeah.
Because the internal screams, you're in such agony and misery inside, but nobody sees it.
Right. Right. And I was just thinking yesterday, I don't know what triggered me, and I can't remember what triggered me, but I was just thinking to myself, I just want to scream. I felt like I was screaming inside. And I was like, I just want to scream. And I bet if I scream, I'll feel so much better.
You can
You
do
know?
that. Scream into a pillow. I've done
Right.
that before.
Right. I've
You
never done it.
let the intense emotion out. We have to get the emotion out. Even with grief, there's a thing called grief work because we have to get that emotion from in the body out of the body. Some
Right.
people, they like to go running or riding bikes or, physical, there's all different ways of how you can process that out of the body, but you have to get it out because the body keeps the score. Trauma kills people. It makes people sick if they don't deal with it.
Right. Yes. Yes. That's terrible.
Yeah, and people don't know that and they won't recognize it, but it does.
Yes,
The
it
first time I
does.
said that, I felt like I was making a big deal out of it. Oh, you're being dramatic. No, trauma kills people.
Yes, it does.
I'm
Definitely.
not ashamed of saying it anymore.
Nope, you shouldn't be. A lot of people need to hear that. It does. Okay, moving on to love. Let's get into love. You're known as the lady on the internet who loves you.
Yes, that lady on the internet who loves you. Yes.
I want to sit in that for a second, just for a second, because for a lot of people, self-love feels fake, forced, and uncomfortable.
Well, people are told and taught that it's self-centered, and in religious circles, it's taught that it's sin. I grew up with loving myself. That was wrong. That was something that was wrong to do, and it's not wrong. I'm not trying to get people to be egotists or narcissists. That's a different thing.
Yeah,
Healthy
yeah.
self-love is good because and it starts with recognizing your value, because when you value something, you will take care of it. If you value your car, you'll take care of it. If you value your house, you'll take care of it. If you value yourself, you'll take care of yourself.
So how does it look for someone who never experienced it growing up?
They hurt themselves in a whole host of ways. However that suits them, because people do it differently. Some people do it through addiction. Some people do it through overworking. Some people do it through they trash talk themselves all the time. Some people do all those things.
But how do you teach someone to love themselves?
They have
when
to
they're
start recognizing their value. They have to see where they are. They have to see that they don't love themselves. I have a free self-love assessment available on my website if anyone wants to take that, of how much do you love yourself? How big of a deal is this? Is it like, well, I'm not too bad at loving myself, or I really suck at loving myself, or I hate myself. I hated myself. I tried to kill myself slowly because I hated myself so much. I didn't think I had the right to draw breath. I had existential issues. And people have to, it's like, you have to go to when did it start? Because babies are born loving themselves.
Right.
Babies don't hate themselves. They're like,
Right.
They cry, feed me, change me. That's the only way they know to ask for what they need. But they are born loving themselves, reaching out for help to get what they need. Well, something happened since then that brought you to where you're at. And that's what you have to find. You have to find out, when did it start? What happened? Maybe it was a slow progression. Maybe it was one incident that occurred. It could be many different things of why, and then getting to the root of that and have to see their value, that they have value. Every person who's drawing breath has intrinsic value. I believe that. I'm faith-based. I believe God created us with value. Everyone has value just because they have breath. And people who like to sort people between good people and bad people, they'll say, well, they have right and they don't. No, everyone has value. People are evil. Something happened to them.
Life is just, people will answer that question with just life happen. People saying now, you ever heard life is lifing? You ever heard
My
somebody
daughter
say
says
that?
all the time. People say, how do you do? I go, life be life, and if I don't want to tell them anything, I don't want to say I'm fine anymore unless I really feel like I am. But like an example, because I'm in the middle of writing my next book, and I came across a story of a young man named Brian that I'm including in my book, and it's an excellent example of how life happened. He is in prison for multiple murders. He was a murder for hire. He got paid to murder people. And this person who wrote the article about it went and interviewed him. And what happened to Brian is he grew up fatherless. His mother was always gone, and he grew up invisible. He grew up invisible. He had no one there to nurture him in any way. He grew up invisible, and his whole trek into the evil went into, he got paid to deliver packages. He'd deliver packages, no big deal. Till one of them was a gun. Well, it's not, it's just to look at. And then he paid to this, and it escalated into they paid him to kill people. And one of the saddest things they said in that article about Brian was, I didn't know I was a person until someone paid me to be one.
Wow, that's deep.
That's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad. I mean, he murdered people, that's bad. He hurt people, that's bad. I'm not validating that or excusing, but there's a reason why. And it's a hurt person who was vacated on the inside from a child.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've worked with people who have gone from surviving to actually thriving, you know. What's that moment where everything starts to shift?
When they have aha moments. I love those. Many of my clients have already gone through counseling, and either it's helped them to a point or it didn't help them at all. But if someone comes to me and they need a counselor, I will send them to a counselor, because I am not a counselor. I am a coach. It's forward focused only. You know, when you're driving in a car, you'll use your rear view mirror and your side view mirrors to look behind you. But if you focus on those, you're going to crash into something. So with coaching, we focus ahead, but we use the mirrors to look back to bring them into moving forward. So and my whole thing with that lady on the internet that loves you started during the pandemic, when fear was tangible in the air, and love drives fear out. People need to know they're loved. There was so much panic and fear in the air.
Yes.
I need to do something to help. I mean, I can't fix the world, but what can I do? And I said, I can put love out there. And I just stumbled my way into it. I would show up on lives on Facebook and other mediums and say, I'm this lady here and I love you and I want to tell you I love you because you matter and this. And then one day I just grabbed that hashtag. I have it IP protected, and that myself is that identity of that lady on the internet who loves you. And I am that. So I can tell people, I love you. Then I put the hashtag, because sometimes I don't want them thinking I'm coming on to them or something, you know? Not trying to pick up anybody.
That's funny. Some people out there might think that's the case too. That's the funny thing. That's crazy. So yeah, that need to be said. So Danielle, for someone listening right now and they feel broken, what do you want them to hear?
Matter. And I love you. You are lovable. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you feel guilty of. Shame doesn't belong there. You matter. And there's hope.
There's hope. But tell the people where they could find you, and I'm going to put it all in the description, but, you know, from your mouth.
My website is daniellebernock.com, DanielleBernock.com. It goes to my blog, my coaching, my speaking, my workshops. I had a podcast for 3 years that you can still access those interviews from my website, all my socials, everything I have at my hub of my website.
And do you do virtual coaching?
Yes, I only do coaching on Zoom. I do that very intentionally for the safety of my clients. I want them to feel safe. They can turn it off if they ever get uncomfortable. I've never had one had to do that. But I don't want to be in their space, because they're in a place where they need to feel like they have a sense of control there. They could turn it off at any second if they wanted to. They could stop. I want them to feel safe, and their privacy is of the utmost importance to me.
And we could book you through the website, consultations and stuff like that?
I do a free discovery call to see if we're a good fit and answer a couple of questions and talk about how it works and stuff like that. So yes.
Excellent.
And my books are available at my website as well. So.
Excellent. And you're on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff?
I have a YouTube channel.
Okay, excellent. So I need to get you on my app. I actually have an app too, Danielle. I just launched the app. It's called the W.A.R Network app. It's recovery driven, but it has all the good stuff. It has, think of it like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. Remember MySpace, all that stuff put into one. Yeah.
Now you're dating yourself. There was one after that called Zanga.
Zenga. Yeah, all of that put into one. But it just came out like 2 weeks ago. It's nice. It's a good app.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn too.
Okay. So, man, Danielle, this was powerful. And I think what stands out the most is, people aren't broken. They're carrying things, they were never taught how to release, basically. So if you take anything from this episode, people, it's this. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally meeting who you were supposed to be, okay? Without the weight of everything that tried to bury you. Danielle, thank you again. It was an honor.
It was an honor to be here. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, ma'am. Until next time, people, each one reach one. We're all recovering. Peace.
The invasion of Iraq is a good time to take stock. Since the war began, 3,192 U.S. troops have been killed, more than 24,000 wounded. At least 50,000 Iraqi civilians have died.
It's war.